The person you trust most can become your greatest threat. Today's story isn't just about one tragic moment. It's about the hidden epidemic destroying families behind closed doors. This is a story that could save lives. Stay until the end. The courtroom was suffocating with grief. June 5th, 2025. Family members clutched each other as the judge delivered the sentence, 23 years in prison. In the gallery, sobs echoed off the walls. A mother wept for her daughter who would never come home. A family mourned not just one life, but two. But across the room, one person sat unmoved. Army Private First Class Mischa Johnson II stared ahead with empty eyes. No tears, no remorse, just cold, terrifying indifference as he learned his fate for killing his 19-year-old pregnant wife and their unborn child. This is the story of ultimate betrayal, when the person who promised to love and protect becomes the one who destroys everything. Her name was Mischa Johnson, 19 years old, a daughter of Hawaii with a smile that could melt your heart and dreams bigger than the Pacific Ocean that surrounded her island home. Her full name reflected her Hawaiian heritage, Kalohilani meaning the calm of heaven, a name that seemed to capture her gentle spirit. Mischa wasn't just another statistic waiting to happen. She was the kind of person who remembered your birthday, who checked on you when you were sad, who had a gift for making anyone feel like they mattered. She had dreams of going to college, maybe becoming a nurse. She wanted to help people, to make a difference in the world, and she was 6 months pregnant with a baby girl. She'd spent countless hours in the nursery, carefully arranging tiny clothes and soft blankets. She'd read pregnancy books cover to cover, downloaded apps to track her baby's development, and talked to her growing belly about everything, what they'd do together, places they'd visit, how much she already loved her. The baby had a name, a beautiful Hawaiian name that Mischa had chosen with care, thinking about the meaning, the sound, the legacy she wanted to give her daughter. She glowed when she talked about the baby, her sister would later recall, voice breaking. She'd put her hands on her belly and just smile, this smile that lit up the whole room. She said she couldn't wait to teach her daughter to swim in the ocean, to show her all the beautiful places in Hawaii. Mischa had maternity photos planned. She'd picked out a coming-home outfit for the baby. She'd started a journal, writing letters to her unborn daughter about what life was like before she arrived, about how wanted and loved she already was. She had names picked out for her daughter's first Halloween costume, ideas for her first birthday party. She'd even started a savings account, putting away money for her daughter's future education, plans that would never come to pass. Because the man she trusted most, the father of her child, the person who should have been protecting both of them, was already planning something else entirely. She met Dwayne when she was just 17, a teenager with stars in her eyes and a heart full of trust. He was older, 25, a soldier stationed at Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. Private First Class Mischa Johnson II seemed like everything a young woman could want. Mature, stable, someone in uniform who represented honor and protection. He had a steady job, a future, and he showered her with attention that made her feel special, chosen. To Mischa's family, the age gap was concerning. 8 years might not seem like much when you're adults, but when one person is 17 and the other is 25, it represents vastly different life stages. Dwayne had years of adult experience, military training and independence. Mischa was still a teenager, still figuring out who she was, but Mischa was in love. And love, especially young love, can blind you to red flags that seem obvious to everyone else. They married, and for a while it probably felt like a fairy tale. A young wife, a military husband, a baby on the way. From the outside it looked like the American dream playing out in paradise. But fairy tales don't exist behind closed doors where no one else can see. The signs were there, subtle at first. Dwayne's jealousy when other men talked to Mischa. His need to know where she was, who she was with, what she was doing every moment of the day. His questions about her friends, her family, her past. He's just protective, Mischa probably told herself. He loves me so much, he worries about me. Friends noticed that Mischa seemed to check her phone constantly, texting Dwayne updates about where she was and what she was doing. They noticed she started declining invitations to go out, saying Dwayne preferred they spend time together at home. Her sister later recalled conversations where Mischa would mention Dwayne's temper, how he'd get upset over small things, how he'd sulk or give her the silent treatment when he was angry. But he always apologizes, Mischa would say. He brings me flowers and says he's sorry. He says he just loves me so much. It makes him crazy sometimes. The isolation happened gradually. Mischa started seeing her friends less, spending less time with her family. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, just a slow pulling away that felt natural at the time, but was actually calculated control. And then Mischa got pregnant. For most couples, pregnancy is a time of joy and anticipation, but for abusers, pregnancy often triggers escalation. Suddenly, their partner is more dependent, more vulnerable, less likely to leave. The mask starts to slip. Dwayne's jealousy intensified, his control tightened, the arguments became more frequent, more intense. But Mischa was 6 months pregnant. She was planning a nursery, picking out baby names, dreaming of their family. She was invested in making it work, in believing that becoming parents would bring them closer together. She had no way of knowing that her pregnancy wasn't making her safer. It was putting her in more danger than she'd ever been in her life. It was a Saturday morning in Hawaii, the kind of day that should have been filled with weekend plans and quiet moments together. Mischa, now 6 months pregnant, was probably moving a little slower these days, her growing belly making simple tasks more challenging. According to Dwayne's eventual confession, the tension had been building for days, maybe weeks. He'd been receiving text messages from another woman, messages that Mischa had discovered. The betrayal cut deep. Here she was, carrying his child, planning their future together, and he was being unfaithful. That morning, they were at home when something on the television triggered the confrontation. Maybe it was an actress who resembled the other woman, or a commercial that reminded Mischa of the messages she'd found. The exact catalyst doesn't matter. What matters is that in that moment, 6 months pregnant and feeling the weight of betrayal, Mischa confronted the man she'd trusted with her life. "You're cheating on me," she said. The words that had been burning inside her finally came out. "I know about her. I saw the messages." Dwayne's response was denial, anger, deflection. "You're crazy," he told her. "You're being paranoid." But Mischa wasn't backing down. She was tired of the lies, tired of the gaslighting, tired of being made to feel like she was imagining things when she knew what she'd seen. The argument escalated. Voices raised, accusations flew back and forth, and then, in her pain and anger and desperation, Mischa said the words that would become her death sentence. "You'll never see our baby." For most people, those words from a hurt and pregnant wife would be devastating but understandable. They would lead to tears, to apologies, to difficult conversations about trust and commitment and whether the relationship could be saved. But Dwayne Johnson wasn't most people. Something inside him snapped, not the way a normal person snaps under stress, but the way someone with a capacity for ultimate violence finally reveals their true nature. He reached for a machete, a large, heavy blade that he kept near their bed, ostensibly for protection. In Hawaii, it's not uncommon for people to have machetes for yard work, for cutting vegetation. But in that moment, it became an instrument of murder. Mischa probably had seconds to realize what was happening, seconds to see the man she loved, The father of her unborn child raising a weapon against her. Seconds to understand that her life and her baby's life was about to end. The blade struck her head with devastating force. Mischa, 6 months pregnant with their daughter, fell to the floor of their home, the life drained out of her eyes. As she lay there, one hand probably instinctively moving to protect her belly, even in her final moments. In that instant, 2 lives were stolen. A 19-year-old woman who had dreams and plans and so much love to give, and a baby girl who would never take her first breath, never know her mother's touch, never have the chance to experience the life her mother had planned for her. But Dwayne's horror didn't end there. Most people, even in the worst moment of their lives, would call 911, would try to get help, would be horrified by what they'd done and immediately seek medical attention, even if it was too late. Not Dwayne. For the next 2 days, he methodically dismembered Mischa's body. He used a chainsaw, a power tool that he had to go out and purchase, meaning this wasn't a crime of passion that continued in the heat of the moment. This was calculated, deliberate destruction. He cut apart the woman who had loved him, who had trusted him, who had been carrying his child. He placed the pieces in garbage bags and disposed of them in a dumpster near his military base, knowing that the contents would be incinerated as part of routine waste disposal. He was trying to erase every physical trace of Mischa and their baby from existence. But you can't erase love. You can't incinerate the impact someone had on the world. You can't dispose of the hole left behind when someone is ripped away from the people who cared about them. Dwayne thought he could make them disappear. Instead, he ensured that their story would be remembered forever. July 15th, 2024. 3 days after he murdered his wife and unborn child, Mischa Johnson walked into a police station and filed a missing person report. He played the part of the worried husband perfectly, told officers that Mischa had left after an argument, claimed she was emotionally unstable due to her pregnancy. He painted a picture of a woman who couldn't handle stress, who was prone to dramatic outbursts, who might do something unpredictable. It was a calculated performance designed to shift blame to the victim and explain away her disappearance. But Dwayne's deception went deeper than just lying to police. He had Mischa's phone, and he used it to create an elaborate fiction that she was still alive. Text messages started appearing from Mischa's number to her family and friends. "I'm fine," they read, "just need some space. Don't worry about me." But Mischa's family immediately knew something was wrong. These messages didn't sound like her at all. Mischa's texts were usually full of warmth, scattered with emojis, filled with little details about her day and questions about theirs. These messages were cold, brief, completely unlike her communication style. Her sister tried calling repeatedly. The phone would ring and ring or go straight to voicemail. When she texted back asking specific questions, "Where are you staying? Do you need anything for the baby? Can we talk?" The responses were vague and evasive. Days turned into a week. Mischa missed family gatherings she'd been excited about. She didn't show up for prenatal appointments she'd scheduled weeks in advance. Her social media, which she used to update regularly with pregnancy photos and updates about her life, went completely silent. Her family knew this wasn't like her. Even if she was upset, even if she'd left after a fight, she wouldn't just disappear without explanation. She wouldn't worry them like this. And she especially wouldn't miss medical appointments for her baby. Her pregnancy was the most important thing in her life. Meanwhile, investigators were starting to piece together a timeline. That didn't make sense. They pulled surveillance footage from around the area where Dwayne claimed Mischa had last been seen. They interviewed neighbors who hadn't seen or heard anything unusual. They checked with local hospitals, shelters, anywhere a pregnant woman in distress might go for help, but there was no trace of Mischa anywhere. Then, the evidence started mounting in a different direction. Surveillance cameras at a hardware store showed Dwayne purchasing a chainsaw on July 13th, the day after Mischa supposedly left. Store employees remembered him because he seemed nervous, agitated, and paid in cash for an expensive power tool. Witnesses near the military base reported seeing someone matching Dwayne's description acting strangely near dumpsters in the days following Mischa's disappearance. Security cameras caught glimpses of a figure disposing of multiple heavy garbage bags during overnight hours when the area was typically deserted. Phone records showed that the text messages supposedly sent by Mischa were all sent from locations where Dwayne was present. The messages themselves, when analyzed by forensic linguists, showed language patterns and word choices that didn't match Mischa's known communication style. Most damning of all, there was no evidence that Mischa had ever left their home alive. No witnesses saw her, no cameras caught her, no trace of her presence existed anywhere after July 12th. The investigation shifted focus. Detectives began treating this not as a missing person case, but as a homicide with Dwayne as the prime suspect. But Dwayne continued to maintain his innocence. For months, he stuck to his story. Mischa had left after their fight. She was unstable. She was probably hiding somewhere, too embarrassed or angry to come home. He hired lawyers. He submitted to interviews. He even participated in searches for his missing wife, playing the part of the desperate husband, hoping for her safe return. It was a performance that lasted almost a year. But lies, no matter how carefully constructed, eventually crumble under the weight of truth. And on June 3, 2025, the weight became too much for Dwayne Johnson to carry. June 3, 2025. After months of denying everything, Dwayne Johnson finally told the truth. In a courtroom packed with Mischa's family and friends, he confessed to everything. The argument, the machete, the dismemberment, the cover-up. But here's what was most chilling. He showed no emotion, no tears for the wife he'd killed, no remorse for the child he'd murdered, no acknowledgement of the lives he'd destroyed. He spoke about Mischa's death like he was describing the weather. Flat, detached, empty. "I didn't mean to kill her," he said, as if that somehow made it better. "I just snapped." The gallery erupted. Mischa's family screamed. Her mother collapsed in sobs, but Dwayne just stood there, unmoved by the ocean of grief surrounding him. 2 days later, he was sentenced to 23 years in prison. It was over. But for Mischa's family, the real sentence, a lifetime without her, was just beginning. Mischa's story isn't unique, and that's the most terrifying part. Every year, thousands of women are killed by their intimate partners. Domestic violence is an epidemic hiding in plain sight, destroying lives behind closed doors that look perfectly normal from the outside. Pregnancy doesn't protect women. It often makes them more vulnerable. Studies show that homicide is a leading cause of death for pregnant women. The very time when they should feel most protected becomes their most dangerous. The red flags were there with Dwayne. His jealousy, his control, his need to isolate Mischa from her support system. But like so many victims, Mischa probably didn't recognize them as warnings. She saw them as signs of love. "He cares so much he gets jealous. He just wants to protect me." We need to talk about these warning signs. We need to create systems that protect victims before it's too late, because for Mischa, all the awareness in the world can't bring her back. Mischa Johnson should be holding her baby right now. She should be experiencing sleepless nights and first smiles and tiny fingers wrapped around hers. She should be watching her child take first steps and say first words. Instead, her family visits a grave where flowers wilt in the Hawaiian sun. Her mother sits on the beaches Mischa loved, scattering petals into waves that will never carry them back to shore. She's with the ocean now. She whispers through tears that never seem to stop. The community that knew and loved Mischa struggles to understand how someone they trusted could commit such unthinkable violence. How the man who promised to love her could become her killer, and somewhere a nursery still sits empty, baby clothes that will never be worn, a crib that will never be filled, 2 lives stolen in a single moment of rage, a family shattered, a community traumatized, all because the person Mischa trusted most betrayed her in the most final way possible. As we close this story, we're left with questions that demand answers. Not just about this case, but about the epidemic of domestic violence that continues to destroy lives across our communities. How many women are living in fear right now? In your neighborhood, in your workplace, in your family? How many women are making excuses for their partner's jealousy, explaining away controlling behavior, living in terror while putting on a brave face for the world? Are you willing to be the difference? When you see the signs, when someone confides in you, when your instincts tell you something isn't right, will you speak up? Will you step in? Will you be the person who saves a life instead of the person who wishes they had acted after it's too late? These questions don't have easy answers, but they're questions we all need to ask ourselves, because Mischa's story isn't just about one woman who died. It's about all the women who are still alive, still at risk, still hoping someone will notice their pain and offer them a way out. The next time you hear someone say, "Why didn't she just leave?" remember Mischa. Remember that she was 19 years old, pregnant, financially dependent, emotionally isolated, and desperately hoping that the man she loved would become the man she needed him to be. The next time you see someone making excuses for their partner's controlling behavior, remember that Mischa probably made those same excuses, believed those same lies, held on to that same hope that love could conquer all. The next time you have the opportunity to help someone in an abusive relationship, remember that your intervention might be the difference between life and death. Because the truth is, we all failed Mischa. Society failed her. The systems that should have protected her failed her. The people who saw the warning signs but didn't know how to act failed her. But we don't have to fail the next woman. We don't have to fail the next Mischa. Mischa Johnson's voice was silenced forever on July 12, 2024, but her story, her truth, can still save lives if we're brave enough to listen, to learn, and to act. The choice is ours. The question is, what will we choose if this story opened your eyes to the reality of domestic violence? Please share it. Subscribe for more stories that need to be told. And most importantly, if you see the warning signs in your life or someone else's, speak up. It could save a life.